All right, welcome to the Faith Conversation series where fellowship abides in the heart. I am your host, Caressa Johnson, and our normal co host, Dawood, is under the weather. And so today I have my wonderful, beautiful sister with me, and I'm going to let her tell you guys who she is and a little bit about herself.
Happy Sunday, y'all. So, my name is Stephanie Jeffcoat. I am the founder and executive director of Families Inspiring Reentry and Reunification for Everyone, a nonprofit that is dedicated to providing support for those who have been impacted by the justice system as well as child welfare.
Well, thank you for that wonderful, wonderful, wonderful introduction of yourself. I'm so pleased and honored to have you with me on this conversation series. Thank you for asking at a very short notice. I really appreciate that. So, today, as we are wrapping up Sexual Assault Awareness Month as April comes to an end, we want to go over our last two topics. We did not do one last week just simply because it was Resurrection Sunday. We want to allow you guys to just spend that one on one time celebrating your Heavenly Father while also celebrating with your loved ones. And so we are back to close strong. And our last two points for sexual assault awareness is going to be accessible healing for those without therapy, and then advocacy and awareness. And so me and Stephanie are going to talk about those two items with you guys on today. And we kind of took notes so that we can make sure, but of course, we're going to take a little bit deeper dive into it as we unpack these two topics. So we're going to start with advocacy and awareness. And so the question that we have with advocacy and awareness, how can listeners become advocates for survivors? So we want to let you guys know who are out here in the audience tuning in, like how can you advocate for those who have been affected by sexual assault? So the first key to doing that would be to educate yourself, understand the realities of sexual assault, trauma, and recovery to better support survivors without causing harm. Um, a lot of people are naive to it. As often and as common as it is, there are a lot of people that don't know about it. And so if you're not really aware or familiar with it because maybe it hasn't happened to you or anyone in your family, I'm sure we all know someone that has been impacted or affected by sexual assault in some way, shape, or form. And so just have those conversations with those individuals, do the research online so that you can become well versed on the topic, and that way you can help make impact. Do you have anything you want to add? What are your tips or suggestions around educating people?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to how advocates can be better listeners, is believe in us. So I am someone who identifies as a survivor of a sexual assault. And one of the things that I think is really believe in our experiences without judgment, without second guessing, and without trying to pick apart our stories. It sounds basic enough, but believing survivors were real is where real advocacy starts.
Yeah, that's good. I can definitely agree with that because I've heard a lot of people that have gone through some level of sexual assault, and they were saying like when they shared it with a loved one, the loved one didn't believe them. They questioned them. And while we totally get there are people that just falsifies, situations, I just always say err on the side of caution because you just never know. And so you rather believe than to not believe someone. And even when you do believe, it's okay to believe someone, and then if you find out that
Mm-hmm.
it was wrong, it's okay to say, okay, well, that was my opinion, or that was my view based on the perspective that I believe that person. I would rather have to believe than and then them not being honest or truthful, and then I could come back and say, well, because it's not on you at that point. It's not on you
Right.
if someone else is being dishonest. So I would rather believe than to not believe, and then knowing that someone was being honest and truthful. So the next one is going to be speak out, challenge victim blaming, the rape jokes and misinformation when you encounter them. Like a lot of times, and I'll be honest, there have been times where I hear stories where people come out years later, like they didn't
Mm-hmm.
say nothing about it. And there are times I think our human mind is like, well, why they wait so long to
Right.
say it or whatever. But you never really know why someone waits, and it really shouldn't matter. Like it doesn't change their story, it doesn't change what happened to them, it doesn't change the impact that it had on their lives. And so while your mind wants to say, well, why did they wait so long? They just didn't have to say anything or what have you. Like, we're more so concerned with the wrong things. That shouldn't be our concern or our focus. It should be, okay, well, how can we support them? Like, even if it took them 10, 20, 30 years to come out, like, you don't know mentally what they were facing or dealing with that kept them quiet for all those years. And so, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things is there are so many assaults that go unreported.
Mm-hmm.
I know even for me, I never made a report of the rape. I just moved on with my life. I remember just thinking, like, was it something that I did? Was it my fault? Like, how did this happen? And so because of my own shame and guilt that I felt and the part that I thought that I played in it, I never reported it. And so it's hard, when someone does decide to speak out, even if it's years later, that just means that they're at a point now where they're finally able to come to grasp with what has happened and they're finally able to share. And so the biggest thing is being that support system when someone is ready to share, even if it was years prior. It's not for us to judge them based off of the time that it took them to share that. It's on us to support them when they do.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because I think some of us are just healed, and it's like, okay, we have the courage to talk about it, but not everybody. That's not everybody's reality. And so I think for some people, because there's a certain level of trauma, so even when they
Mm-hmm.
begin to open their mouth and talk about it, like, they probably can't even get through getting it out. And so we have to allow people their time, and it's not for us to judge how long is too long
Right.
to come forward and say it. So yeah, I just that's another way in which we can advocate and bring forth the awareness. The next one is support survivor-led initiatives. Share, donate to, or volunteer with organizations that are run by or for survivors. And that's very just simple and straight to the point right there. Those are just some ways like you can get involved. And so, there are organizations out there that are having events and doing things, and there are always ways that you can take part in it. Google is your best friend, so you can jump on Google and find out if that is a way in which you can support other people. Also use your platforms,
Yeah.
whether it's social media, workplaces, personal circles, to raise awareness, share resources, and amplify survivor voices. I know me, I definitely advocate for it on my social media platforms. I want to encourage other people to use your voice. Use your voice. Your voice matters. You can
Mm-hmm.
help save the lives of other people. The more it's talked about, I know it's one of those touchy subjects. It's one of those things that people don't really want to talk about. But how do you break the cycle? How do you stop it from happening? You have those uncomfortable conversations, and we can't go into it worrying about what are people going to think about me. I remember being in relationships in the past, and it's like, some people feel like you share too much or whatever, which I can see it both ways, because I think it made me think about the whole thing with Kanye West, which I wasn't even up to point on it, but I saw a little bit of it, and I think I guess maybe it was a song or something, some lyrics or something, where he said something about he recently confessed something that he did younger in his younger years
Mm-hmm.
with a cousin or something like that, like oral, whatever, and I think that the lady, I don't know if he's married to her, but I guess she came back and said some things are for private healing or whatever. So I think that there's a little bit of a disclaimer there. Like, if you're not in a place of healing, then
Right.
you know what I'm saying. Do the healing first before you just come on out there, because we don't want to traumatize other people. We want
Mm-hmm.
to be mindful of the audience, and so putting certain things out there, it may be a little too sensitive for certain ears, for
Mm-hmm.
certain audience members. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It's interesting that you say that, being that this month is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I have had the opportunity to go to Sacramento once earlier in April, and now I'll be going back on Tuesday. And
Mm-hmm.
so, as I've been testifying for these bills, and they're not related to sexual assault, um, but in my both my testimonies, I share about my sexual assault because it led to a pregnancy, which
Mm-hmm.
ultimately led to that child being taken.
Mm-hmm.
And so, have had the opportunity to really bring that into this space during the month of April in the legislature to show people, like, although we have gone through these things, what we need are people who are willing to use their voices,
Right.
people who are willing to use their platforms, the people who are really willing to advocate for change and to
Mm-hmm.
be that voice for others who have experienced these things, who may not be willing to share just yet.
Right.
And when it comes to like transparency and saying keeping certain things like private, I'm very open with
Me
all of my
too.
story.
That's
And
me.
I've had people tell me that too, like
Right, like
you
that's
share
too
a little
much.
bit too much, like
Hmm.
people are going to use that against you.
Hmm.
But no, I think for me, like it's part of the healing journey.
Yeah.
And also I share to show others who are still dealing with that shame and guilt that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share your deepest, most painful experiences, because by you doing that, it gives others the opportunity to heal
Yeah.
and the courage to want to speak up and share as well.
Yeah, I agree. Because that was one of the things, like when I came out and shared on my little YouTube video years ago on Mother's Day, there were so many people in my inbox just, like, wow, like it inspired other people. And that's what life is about. Like we don't just exist just to be here. Like we're not just on this earth. Like God allowed you to get through those things that
Yeah.
you went through, and we're supposed to testify. Like that's how we overcome, by our
Yes.
testimonies. And so I highly encourage people to speak out and use your platforms and so forth. And I guess you kind of touched on the last one, which is vote and advocate for policy by just talking about your experience with, legislation. And I think that was so good. But yeah, let's take a moment to talk about that. Because I went to the meeting with you just this past week,
Hmm.
and how you guys were informing some of the attendees on how they can make difference in the community, because a lot of people have this mindset of, oh, well, I don't vote because they don't, our vote doesn't matter. Like there
Right.
are all these misconceptions around voting and so forth. And can you just touch on that? I know, like, we talk about sexual assault awareness, but like, I honestly, I didn't think that, but there are certain things, there are certain ways in which
Hmm.
we can make a difference. So touch on, I guess, tell a little bit about your story and what inspired you to then take part in the bills and advocate, and what, tell them what it is that you're doing and how that's going to then lead to you making a change based on your own personal experience.
Yeah, so as I shared, I in 2016 I was a victim of a sexual assault, which led to a pregnancy. I at that time was still in my addiction, and when I gave birth to that child was ultimately taken by the child welfare system. Within a year from the time that she was taken, numerous things happened. I ended up back incarcerated 3 times, and each time that I went back to jail, my visits just stopped with my daughter. No one ever brought her to see me. I was never given the opportunity to even reestablish that relationship with her. And so I remember, when she got adopted and I got released from jail and found out she was adopted, I just felt defeated. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who I could go to. I didn't know what to do. When I got connected to a group, All of Us or None, I found out about the work that they were doing. And one of the things that they were doing was policy. And they were
Mm.
like, keep sharing your story, keep showing up to these meetings, keep telling us like the different things that you want to see us work on. And I was like, oh, so this is how you create change. And from that moment, that just like lit a fire in me, because once I found out like that we could use our voices and our experiences and the pain that we've gone through, no matter what it may be, whether it's going against child welfare system, healing from sexual assault, being a victim of gun violence, being a victim of anything. When we share our stories and make these connections with these legislators who, mind you, we vote into office, so they
Right.
work for us. We
Mm-hmm.
are their constituents. It is their job to create, to take our ideas and to create policies, or to author policies that we want to see. And so it's our experiences, right? We come up with an idea based off of something that we have went through that we want to see get changed.
Mm-hmm.
And then we start that process with finding a legislator who we call champion, who will champion that for us, to create the law that we want to see implemented. And so I think even, as we're talking about like with the sexual assault, like there are so many ways that we can create better policies for survivors,
Mm-hmm.
that really address helping people heal and overcome some of that trauma.
Okay. That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, so the next thing on the agenda is signs someone may need help but isn't speaking out. So we want to go over some of those signs so that you guys can be mindful and pay attention to that maybe someone is going through. And it just made me think about something my brother in Christ Marvin, we talked about, because he's a dean at a middle school. And he was saying, when I told him I wanted to go into the schools and speak and bring forth more awareness. That was one of my goals. That's something that I saw myself doing. And he was saying that he recommended that I start with the staff first, like the teachers and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, so that they can pick up on like how do you know if a student may be going through this. And start with the staff and make them become more aware. So I find it interesting that that's one of the points. And so one of the things is changes in behavior, withdrawal, anxiety, irritability, depression, or sudden changes in personality or routine. And I was just speaking on another podcast where I was just saying how I remember showing up in middle school because I was being violated sexually at home. I was having sex with an adult man, and I'm in the eighth grade. And so I remember showing up in school and I had shame. I was wearing shame as if it was a garment. And I was feeling like the moment that I walked through those school doors that everybody else can see that. Like I felt disgusting. Like I just felt nasty. And I felt like other people viewed me through that same lens that I was viewing myself from. And so, I challenge those people who are in those spaces in educational institutions to pay closer attention, even if you have nieces or nephews or cousins or whatever come over, like being mindful and paying attention to their behavior, because you're definitely going to notice a shift or change in the behavior. Another thing is avoidance, avoiding certain places, people, or activities that they once enjoyed. So if you find a person like that's normally upbeat and always want to go places to do things, and then all of a sudden they don't want to go and they don't want to go places or do things, like that's another sign or indicator that maybe they need help, but they're not communicating. Like that's the way in which it's being communicated. Physical symptoms, sleep problems, unexplained aches, panic attacks, or changes in eating habits. So a lot of times, we poke fun at people when we start seeing things, but those are a lot of times symptoms of a deeper issue. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's best if we pay closer attention to our loved ones because they may be screaming for help and we don't know that. And I'm gonna take a pause before I go over the other ones and give you a chance to see if there's anything you want to add to any of those ones.
No, I mean, I think you really covered it. Like when I think changes in behavior is one of the most telltale signs when you know that someone is going through something. Like I am a very extremely extroverted person, I would
Mm-hmm.
say, and I think when you know that someone is typically that way, or even someone who may not be as extroverted, but that they at least speak to you when they see you at school. They make
Mm-hmm.
eye contact with you, and now all of a sudden they're looking down when they're walking. They're sad. They're irritable. They're wanting to eat lunch by themselves. Like when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to those high school students, you know usually, or even younger students, they want to be around friends. They can't wait to go
Right.
to recess and play
Mm-hmm.
and have that interaction with others. And when you see that all of a sudden the student is no longer doing those things, I think that is a way that you can tell that there's something that may be going on at home.
Mm-hmm.
And even with adults too, the same thing. Like if you have someone who is usually that person that is going to be at an event, or that they're going to go to a certain function, and all of a sudden they're in the house for months at a time, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not posting on social media anymore, they're not answering their phone. That's a way that you can tell like something must or could be going on with that person.
That's good. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, those are great. The next one is substance use, increased use of alcohol or drugs to cope with pain, and that made me think about a loved one that I had where I remember this particular person, like they weren't really one to indulge in drinking. Like I remember at one point in their life they would we would be out eating and they would have a drink, and this was years ago. I no longer drink, but no judgment to those who do. But I remember like they were kind of like me, just wanting like a fruity drink. Like, if it had a little too much alcohol, it's like, ew, this is nasty. And then it went from that perspective to then it's like, next thing you know, it's shots like straight alcohol and liquor. And I was like, wait, this isn't that same person that couldn't even really like they wanted more juices and stuff rather than liquor. So it's like now you want more liquor. And so which of course I reached out and was like, and you got to be mindful with your approach. You don't want to approach it in a way that causes them to be offended. So you want to find the proper language to have that conversation. What would you say would be a example of that? So like if you know me, I'm your friend, in like that same scenario where I
Mm-hmm.
just barely like I just eat drink fruity drinks and then all of a sudden you see me taking back shot after shot after shot. So let's do a little role play. So what would that conversation look like?
Yeah, so before we do jump into the role play, let's just say, for someone who dealt with addiction for 19 years, drugs, alcohol, I know, the reason why many people do suffer from addiction, and usually it is to escape from reality. It is to
Mm,
not deal with a certain type of pain or trauma. It really is a numbing factor. Like when you are on those substances, and not saying that like, one, even they say that one drink can impair someone's thinking, but we're talking about
right.
excessively drinking, excessively using drugs. We know that that is going to be used to try and numb someone. So if I had a friend who I know did not engage in those things and then all of a sudden is,
Hmm.
that would tell me like, they say actions speak louder than words, right?
Right.
And just in those actions, I would know that there must be something that is going on. Even if she's saying, I'm fine, I'm good, like, not,
Hmm.
everything's okay, like,
Right.
there's something that's going on. Because when you are drinking or using any type of substance excessively, it's usually to numb you from something
Something
that you
else.
don't want to face.
That's good.
It's an escape from reality.
That's good. But we don't have to do the role play. That looks different for different people. So you know the relationship that you have with that
Yeah.
person, but definitely don't just turn a blind eye to it, I guess is what
Yeah.
we want to say. Hypervigilance, extreme alertness, easily startled, always appearing on edge. So it's like, some people just have, I guess it's kind of like being paranoid, you know what I'm saying? And jumpy or whatever. Those are some
Mm-hmm.
signs that maybe something has happened to traumatize them or impact them. And so that's another indicator. Indirect disclosure, like jokes, vague references, or casual mentions that hint at harm or discomfort. So sometimes people would make jokes out of situations, and
Mm-hmm.
it's really because there's something deeper, lying with that. So that was just another indicator.
Kind of like that saying, like you have to laugh from crying, or you laugh from crying.
Mm-hmm.
Like some
Yeah.
people, like something is going on, but they're just like laughing and laughing because they're trying to prevent themselves from like breaking down and
Oh yeah.
crying.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see what was the other one. I'm seeing this.
How can we shift the cultural and societal narratives?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can do that. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so the next one we're going to go into is how can we shift the cultural and societal narratives around sexual assault?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to go? You want me to go?
So I think one of the things that came up to me is we really need to stop framing survivors as someone who is broken or damaged or a victim, right? You
Mm-hmm.
realize that since we've been having this conversation, we have said survivors are not a victim of sexual
Right.
assault, because there is a difference, right? When you think of that victim mentality, that person is usually still in that state of, you know, um, that state of trauma. They're still in that state of why me and how could this happen and why this, versus a survivor is someone who has accepted what has happened,
Mm-hmm.
has done the work to heal, and is now in a place where they have been able to move past that pain and
Right.
that trauma. So I think one of the ways is just stop framing survivors as someone that is broken, and instead of saying what's wrong with you, say what happened to you.
Right.
Because oftentimes when we see someone acting a certain way, we're quick to just judge that person and be like, well, what's wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah. That's good. That's good. It made me think about too. Like sometimes I remember when I would meet new guys when I was in my phase where I guess you can call myself dating or whatever. And I remember some guys when I would like, cause I talk openly, like you said, I'm transparent, so I don't have a problem. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. But I think
mm-hmm,
some guys would kind of feel like I'm damaged property. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm damaged, like
damaged
I'm too
goods.
fragile. So they would be like skeptical on whether or not they how in which way they engage with me, as if like maybe not sitting too close to me, or just being more intimate and like, or whatever. Like now they hesitant to like don't touch me the wrong way because they feel
Mm-hmm.
like I'm just gonna be like this, jumpy or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, no, I'm good. You know what I'm saying? And so I think that I think that we should be mindful of how we treat people. Like, not everybody, like, if you don't know, ask. It's okay to, like,
Right.
ask, you know what I'm saying? So some people may be triggered because they're not in a place of wholeness, but don't assume that everyone that has gone through some level of sexual assault is going to be like that, because to me, I'd be a little bit offended because it's like, you ain't got to treat me like that. Like, I'm normal, So, one of the points was normalize conversations about consent. Teach and model that consent must be enthusiastic, ongoing, and respected. Um, to me, I think that that's somewhat of a challenging thing. I think me and Dawood talked about this on another episode about consent. Well, no, I think he and I were just talking one on one. And I think it's really touchy because I see it from both perspectives. Because how do I teach my son, like, what is actual consent? How
Mm-hmm.
do I view what is actual consent? Because I remember, oh, do I want to even share this? I'm like, I don't know if I want to. um, I don't know if I want to go there, but
Right. No, I know.
I just remember being in the space and I was like, did I? Was that really consent?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because it was a situation, and I want to be mindful because it's like, I think from the guy's perspective, there's body language, there's certain things that we as women can do that make
Mm-hmm.
men think that they have the green light. And so if we're giving those signs and signals that may make a man think that, like, oh, well, she's into me, she wanted me, then they may see those as indicators that it's okay, like we're consenting to
Right.
be intimate with them. And so it's not always like, and then you may have a woman who may come back after the fact, just like for me, the little girl that didn't know how to say no. So here I
Mm-hmm.
am in a space with another man, and maybe because I am engaging to a certain level with him, and maybe that is leading him to believe or giving him signs that I am consenting to having sex with him. And so he's perceiving, it's all about perception.
Right.
So if he's perceiving that as, oh, she wants me, she likes me, she's feeling me. And some men, it don't even take all of that. Some men just simply because they invited you over and you went over, then they automatically think, oh,
Mm-hmm.
she know what time it was.
Right.
So yeah. So that's a tricky one for me because I feel like men kind of have a tough job, but then I also would say that it's better to be extra cautious and safe than to not. And I think it's really unfortunate in some scenarios because a woman that may be broken or whatnot, and then she may walk away from a situation feeling like she was violated because she felt like she didn't consent. So I think that maybe just to err on the side of caution is to just be clear and ask, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
To just come out straight and ask, like, hey, are we doing this or whatever? And I don't know. It's touchy because I feel like when
Yeah.
you have a certain level of chemistry with someone and you kissing and you doing all these things and so forth, and the atmosphere is set, then it's kind of like, then I can see from a male perspective of why he felt like that was signs to
Mm-hmm.
indicate consent. So then if a woman comes back after the fact and was like, well, no, I didn't really want to, then I
Right.
kind of feel like it's a little bit deceptive. But then at the same time, depending on her place of healing, so I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So for me, what comes to mind when you say like error on extra caution is especially in those moments where a woman may be intoxicated.
That part.
So if this is, you meet someone online or you meet someone wherever and you go out on a date, you don't really know this person, right? Especially if this is like your first date or second date and you guys are having some drinks or something. I think like in those moments you really have to be extremely cautious because it's like if you know that that woman is impaired and on some sort of substance, she may not be in the right mind to really consent. So
Right.
I think the safe bet would be like to maybe not even engage in that type of like interaction with that woman until she's a little bit more sober and able to actually give consent. But yeah, I do agree. Like, sometimes with the men could get the mixed signals, especially if the woman is, kissing and allowing you to do those certain things, but um, that doesn't automatically mean that she's trying to really go all the way. So you do have to
Yeah.
just be extremely cautious and be sure.
And I like that you said that too about the intoxication because when I think back on my days when and I'm just not going to divulge all details, but I remember there was a particular person that would keep making passes at me, and they were cool. Like it was someone that I would be in conversation with, and like, okay, cool, but like I would kind of like decline their advances from that perspective. Like, I knew that they were interested in me sexually, and to kind of like not even put myself, I was kind of creating boundaries. So
Mm-hmm.
they would extend certain invitations to me to come to certain events and do this or do that. Oh, well, hey, I'll pay for your room if you come in town, yada yada yada. And I'm like, no, you know what I'm saying? And I did that because, from a woman's perspective, I didn't know if that would then open the door up to feel like, oh, well, because I paid for your hotel room, that then that meant in your mind that you had access to that hotel room and you was gonna be inviting yourself over,
Right.
you know what I'm saying? And so I just didn't even want to put myself in a space or an environment. And then, after declining the advances or whatever and creating those boundaries and so forth, an invitation was extended to me to go to a certain event. And I did go to the event and I had a good time. But for me, like at that time in my life, I would drink, and I'm a social, well, I was, when I was drinking, I was a social drinker. So I would only drink like if I were to be out and stuff like that. And for me, if I had a drink or two, then I could kind of loosen up. Because if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a drink, then I'm gonna just be one of the ones just looking cute, sitting on,
Mm-hmm.
sitting down, looking at everybody else have a good time. I turn a little bit, but I'm not one to just really be. But if I have a few drinks in my system, and so at this particular event, I then it wasn't until after the fact that there was a conversation that then got back to me that the person that was with this person that had invited me, they kept going to the bar and bringing me back drinks, and they were having a conversation with someone else like, yeah, I had to help him out because he was scared, and I kept going
Mm.
to the bar to get her drinks. And long story short, I ended up sleeping with the person, and the next day, like, I didn't wake up feeling like I was raped or violated. I remember kind of what happened, but it was
Mm-hmm.
to the point, like, after I had that many drinks, I could barely hold myself up. Like, I wasn't like real sloppy, but I had to kind of hold on to their arm to have
Yeah.
that extra balance. So that's how many drinks I had had. And of course, for me, when I've had a few drinks, then that turns me on. You know what I'm saying? My hormones a little bit increased and so forth, and my cycle had just gone off. So I end up, and so I'm sure, like in that guy's mind, it's like, oh, well, she consented. But then,
Mm-hmm.
so after I found out some months down the line that that conversation took place, then in my mind, I'm like, well, was I violated?
Yeah.
Like, was I violated? Like, were they really feeding me drinks to like? Because then I thought about it. I was like, well, when I was sober and not having drinks, I kept declining their
Mm-hmm.
advances. But now it's like, I woke up, and so now I have to admit that like I actually slept with this person. And so, I think that we just have to be careful with that. So guys,
Yeah.
be mindful of that, because technically I could have probably gone to the police,
Mm-hmm.
but I just, to me, I think of intent. I don't think that the person was intending to like violate me. Yeah, they wanted me in that way. And no,
Right.
I don't feel like they really gave me the fair, like, to me, the fair thing would have been like, okay, does she really want me? Because was she want me when she was sober?
Right.
Or is she just like wanting to give
Yeah.
in and have sex with me because now she didn't have one too many drinks? So, but I wouldn't ruin someone's reputation and their livelihood and all that or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But there's some women that, like, if the right person, they talk to the right person, it's like, no, you were violated. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's, I can't find the right term, subjective, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So if you don't want to find yourself in a situation, like my sis Stephanie
Just,
said,
just be
err on
cautious.
be cautious
Yeah.
and get
Extremely
verbal consent
cautious.
and know that
Yes.
like when it comes intoxication or substances,
Yeah.
like you just don't,
And
but
I mean, it's different if it's, someone that you're in a relationship with. And not saying that there isn't partner abuse either, that
right.
doesn't happen. There are some instances where it could be your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your partner, and they may not want to that day. And there are situations where, a spouse could be violated as well. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying, that yeah, I just think when it's someone that you don't know who you're getting to know, that you really have to be extremely cautious.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm gonna skip down to actions to create safer environments and prevent further assaults. So, education and training offer bystander intervention training, trauma informed care workshops, and ongoing consent education. I don't even think that I knew about any of those things. So, I think that that's good. Policy development. Here we go. Policy. Advocate for and implement strong, clear policies against harassment and assault in schools, workplaces, and communities. That's a really good one. Safe spaces. Create environments where people
Mm-hmm.
know how to report safely and trust that they will be taken seriously. That's a major one. Accountability. Hold perpetrators accountable rather than silencing or protecting them. Oh, so the perfect example that I think of with that is R. Kelly. Like, and what I will say is, I just said it in a video, hurt people. And so I truly believe that R. Kelly was just like I think he has an illness, a sickness. And I think that because of whatever may have happened to him, like not everybody has the strength to overcome the things that have had to them,
Mm-hmm.
and so then they inflict that pain onto other people, and they don't even realize, you know what I'm saying, it's kind of like, well, it happened to me. So in their mind, it just depends on their perspective and the lens through which they view it from. But how do we stop the cycle? And so we
Right.
have to stop turning a blind eye to it. So I feel like the reason why R. Kelly got away with what he got away with for so long is because all the people that were around him, they were enabling him. So don't
Mm-hmm.
be enablers. Even some of the, I feel to a certain extent, some of the girls who he violated, I feel like some of the parents played roles in it too,
Right.
and
They
so,
co-signed his behavior. That's
yeah,
what I call
yeah,
it.
yeah. So I think that that's definitely, accountability is a major one. I
Yeah.
think that we definitely have to hold people accountable, and it's just like you see people on these sex offenders lists and so forth, and like, oh, my dog. Yeah, I can see a guy saying, my dog, she lied about her age or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's still a certain level of accountability that I think should take place. Last, oh, go ahead. You got something you want
Yeah,
to
so
add to
I do.
that?
I have to jump in on that because I find myself in these conversations a lot,
Mhm.
especially because I serve the reentry population, right?
Mhm.
And so when it comes to the sex offender list, and don't get me wrong when I say this, y'all, I'm not just like, oh, pro people who actually commit harms to children and people who don't consent. But what I have learned is just the different ways that people can get on that sex offender list. And it's like you can
Yeah.
be having sex with your partner in a public place and have to register as a sex offender.
Mhm.
So I think like when it comes to things like that, like we do have to like, find out what is the situation and why is that person on
Right.
the sex
Right.
offender list. And like you said, the accountability piece. But also for those, like going back to the hurt people, and we know that like there are some situations where people inflict that same, like I said, inflict the same harm.
Mhm.
Um, so I think even with them, it's like we can't be so quick to pass judgment and
Mhm.
still have to extend that forgiveness and that grace to
Grace.
people. But that is a touchy one because I'm like, I know
Yeah.
there's some things I've done with my boyfriend that could have landed me on that list had we been caught.
Right.
And then I also know with, being that underage girl and,
Right. That's what I was gonna say. I remember you telling me about your
having
story.
an ID and being in 21 and over clubs and meeting grown men and
Mhm.
being that one. So yeah, that one's a little hard for me.
Yeah, I get it. There's so many different scenarios and so forth, and each one is each one is
Unique.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so and we gotta handle the situation like if we because we have to be careful in which and how we even treat the people who are imposing these acts amongst other people because
Intentionally.
right, because if we're so quick to pass judgment on them and shame them, then it will stop them from coming forward. So we got to get to a place of healing to where we're able to have those uncomfortable conversations. And if we're always pointing the finger, looking at them like the disgusting, nasty person, like if God gives us a second chance, you know what I'm saying, at life, we've done things may not be the same thing, but in God's
Mm-hmm.
eyes, it's all the same. And so we have to be willing to extend a certain level of grace because a lot of times when some guys really do have issues with that. And I know like society, oh, they should die or hang them, whatever. Like, society feels like they have their opinions about what should happen to
Mm-hmm.
people who violate kids and so on and so forth. But I want to challenge you guys to take into consideration that some people that are out here harming people, they don't even have the mindset or mentality of a normal person. So you in your mind, like they're sick. Yes, they're sick
Yeah.
mentally, and it doesn't give them a pass. It doesn't say they're
Mm-mm.
right for what they're doing. But at the same time, how do you cause change? We can't just shoot them, kill them all up, and bury them and stuff like that. Like that's not the solution. That doesn't stop the cycle.
Right.
The cycle begins to stop once we begin to become more aware. Once we begin to be more involved in realizing it. Because if we can save it from happening to that little boy, then we can save that boy from then becoming an R. Kelly.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, but we have to be willing to do that. And then if we just shame the people who are doing it, like, yes, hold them accountable, but at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, we have to, as uncomfortable and as unrealistic as society may make it think of whatever, we have to extend grace to them because God extends grace to us. And if we just shut them out and, oh, they're disgusting, they're nasty, they should die, this, that, and the third, and lump them all in a category, whatever, then what? How do we motivate them to become a better healed
Yeah.
person that won't continue to do the same thing? Because if we just treat them like that and they don't feel like they're accepted or fit in any space or whatever, and we got to stop worrying about what other people are going to think and feel. Like we don't want to associate ourselves with someone who may have committed harm. It's okay to say, as uncomfortable as it may seem, and I know people not going to agree, I'm probably going to get some backlash for this, but if we can say, hey, I used to be an alcoholic, a drug addict, a prostitute, a thief, a
Right.
murderer,
Yeah.
whatever, in God's eyes, no different. So a person
Mm-mm.
should be able to say, well, yeah, I used to be, I hate to say it because I know, I just know, but I used to be a perpetrator, whatever. Like, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? And I know that that's gonna be a hard thing for a person to come out and say, but I would commend the person if you got the courage to come forward and say, "Yep, I was sick, I was not healed, and I was violating people sexually or whatever. I'm not that person anymore." You
Mm-hmm.
know what I'm saying? I'm not. So like, if we can offer space for other people, all the things that I just mentioned, we should be offering space for those people too. We can't pick and choose. It's not for us to
Right.
pick and choose. Like, oh, who we should or should not give second chances to. It's all up to God. So I want to put that out there. You know, I know some people ain't gonna agree, but guess what? Let the Lord keep doing His work with you. We're gonna jump to yours category. I think it's just a few more. Let's see. Community engagement, encourage healthy relationships, promote respect, communication, and boundary setting skills in all relationships, especially men. Like y'all, hold y'all brothers accountable. Stop like just, you know it's wrong. If you see your homeboy, your cousin, your whomever, if you see them the way in which they talk to a woman or treat a woman or whatever the case may be, like hold them accountable and encourage them to be respectful and all the things. So yeah, we gonna move on to your category. So that was, let's see.
That was mine.
Wait, no, you had the
Mm-mm.
oh. Okay, let's see. Okay, no. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Sorry, y'all. So accessible healing for those. Oh, that's what I was. You ain't say
I wasn't telling you
nothing.
earlier
Look,
on, but I was like, well,
look.
maybe we just gonna just do this one.
Okay, look, we're gonna do it all together, y'all. I totally took that was her category, and I just took all over. I'm so sorry, y'all. Y'all gotta forgive me. I just wrapped up another podcast. Your girl, like, look, I'm tired. Okay,
I
okay.
think that was good though. I
We,
think that
yeah,
was a
it was
lot.
good.
Yeah.
So we gonna do this one together because I done took over yours. So accessible healing for those without therapy. Um, what are alternative healing methods for those who can't afford therapy? So for me, journaling is a major one. Support groups, faith-based healing, and meditation. What do you feel are some alternative methods, or do you want to speak to some of the ones that I just named?
I'll speak to the ones you just named. So,
Okay.
faith based and journaling are the two that really stand out to me. So, being someone who is a creative writer, I write poetry. That has been a effective way for me to
Mhm.
really heal. And in the poetry that I write, I'm sharing my journey, I'm sharing my experiences. So, I think that kind of goes hand in hand with the journaling. But for me, I know being connected to my church, my small group, and just to the faith based community as a whole, that has been instrumental in my
Yeah.
healing journey. I'm not saying that, there's anything wrong with going to a therapist and seeing, seeking counseling. But for me, I have found that healing by the people that I've been connected to through the church.
Yeah, and I think that's great because the reality is a lot. Some people don't have insurance. Some people can't afford therapy, even with insurance. I think I had
Mm-hmm.
like a $50 copay when I. There were a few sessions that was like included. Like if you have, and so if you guys do have an employer, there's usually, what is it called? I can't think of what it's called, but there's usually like some a resource with it where you'll get like a first few sessions and just talk to your human resources department. For some reason, I can't think of what it's called. I'm drawing a blank, but there is a resource like even if you struggle with addiction or whatever, but you get a certain number of free therapy sessions or even like legal advice and stuff like that. And so there's a specific department within HR that has a resource that they can help you with that. But for those who may not be employed or self-employed, or even those who just can't afford therapy, like those are some really great alternatives. There's so many other ways that you guys can get the support that you need that may not cost or even be a cost effective. So, those are just a few, the journaling and support groups and so forth. And definitely, like if you are faith based, then I highly, highly recommend you to connect with people in your ministry or church and so forth. And even if you're running a church, and because some churches don't have a ministry, I don't think that my church has a ministry for that. So, um, encourage, be the person to recommend it. You have a voice. If you're part of a church
Yeah.
community and so forth, say, hey, I think maybe we should start a support group for this, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe we should start some type of ministry to help people to heal in that area.
Yeah, I know my church has started doing like that peer support counseling, and it's
Mm-hmm.
free for anyone who needs that, and they're able to just, call the number and say, "Hey, I'm in need of this support." I mean, they
Yeah.
also offer like the grief support and all different types of support. So I think that is really good connecting to groups that offer that. I know, like here in California, with members who have CalOptima, their insurance does usually offer free therapy, and they're
Mm-hmm.
able to go to sessions. And if they, I don't know the exact amount, but if they've exceeded it, then they have ones that are like that become this low cost sliding scale that is
Mm-hmm.
like basically free for them to be able to have access to.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. There are just some other things too, such as meditation and mindfulness. And there are tons of YouTube videos out there. Like, so maybe you don't really know where to start or what to do. Practices like deep breathing and guided visualization. Why was it so hard for me to say that word? And grounding exercises. They reduce anxiety. It helps survivors reconnect with their bodies and the present moment. And so, and like you said, art, even music therapy. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
poetry may not be your thing. There's music therapy. There's ways to express.
Yeah.
Even with painting and art, and there's just so many different ways to which you can just express yourself, and that'll help you to heal. Like,
Nature.
yeah, nature. Look,
Yeah. You
yes.
and your nature.
My nature walks when I be seeing animals and steady trying to find out what they mean and what the Lord is saying to me through that. Okay, so another one, free or low cost resources available for survivors. So there are crises lines, like how you said, like what your church has
Mm-hmm.
certain lines or whatnot. Let me see. Nonprofit organizations, groups such as RAIN, RAINN, NAMI, NAMI, local shelters often provide free counseling, workshops, and peer support. So,
Mm-hmm.
those are some other options. And I'm sharing this with you guys, whether you are survivors of sexual abuse or you know someone who is. Maybe you know someone who is, and maybe you could kind of see that maybe they're struggling, or that's the area of where they're working on. These are some things that you can share with them, or like maybe make the phone calls for them and see, and then just invite them to certain things. Send them a flyer or something like, oh, this organization is having this event on this day or whatever. Community centers and libraries, some offer free classes, wellness workshops, access to self-help materials. There are certain apps such as Insight Timer, that's for meditation. I know sometimes I go on YouTube and they have all these like if you have trouble sleeping,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain like sounds and stuff like that, like you could turn on, and it definitely helps you sleep better. Trust me, it works. Like rain sounds or whatever, like things that soothe you. Because if you like me and you're an overthinker, your mind is processing all these thoughts like per second. um, but sometimes if you're still struggling with healing and you're still traumatized, your mind could be constantly reminding you of the things that you endured. And so if you have trouble sleeping because you keep remembering it, then those are some good ideas that you can do to like help you to get that rest. Online courses, websites such as Coursera or edX sometimes offer free mental health courses and self development workshops. Um, another way to Another way to provide accessible healing for those who don't have the option or who for whom therapy isn't an option for is building a support system when you're feeling isolated. Online communities, platforms like Reddit, they offer healing forums. Facebook groups can connect survivors with others globally. Faith communities, like she said, churches and so forth. A lot of times they have small groups and mentoring. Volunteering, helping
Mm-hmm.
others can also build meaningful relationships and a sense of purpose. Like I know me, like I began to that helped me heal by being able to speak to other people who had went through it and just tell them how I was able to come. Like there's something so liberating about doing that, and it kind of freed me in a sense. And so, I definitely encourage you guys to volunteer and help, and especially if you're an adult who went through it maybe as a kid, there are other kids that may be going through it and so forth. Mentorship programs. Some organizations offer survivor led mentorship programs where individuals can connect with someone who has walked a similar path. Another way to promote healing for those without therapy is self care practices to support emotional healing. Routine and structure. Building daily routines creates a sense of safety and normalcy. So me, I kind of get in the habit of doing like, as soon as I wake up in the morning, I start my day with prayer. I
Mm-hmm.
shower, get dressed, and then I work out, and that helps me in multiple ways. That helps me physically, but it also helps me mentally. It helps me to be able to process thoughts and stuff during that time of working out. But when you have a routine that gives you some level of structure so you're not all over the place.
I'm not there yet, y'all. Look, she had me in the gym for a couple weeks. Definitely not there with the like helping with my thoughts. Now it may help physically, but yeah.
But what Donnie Kirk would say, we fall down, but we get up.
I'm gonna be back. I'm gonna be back.
That's
I don't
okay. I
know
told my
when,
sister, stretch it out, stretch it
but
out. But no, that's okay. Like we all a work in progress. Consistency is key though. So
yes.
we gotta make it a lifestyle as
Yep.
opposed to
To a
because
chore, as opposed to a chore.
yeah, exactly. But when we view it from that perspective, then
Uh-huh.
and that's with anything. So not just working out or whatever.
Yes.
Like, because there are things that we all have our things that we struggle with to make it a lifestyle of normalcy. So you got to ask yourself, how do I make this a lifestyle? And it has to be feasible. It has to
Mm-hmm.
be something that could work. So if you like for my sis Stephanie, like 3 5 days a week might just that may not be realistic for her right now in this season. So there's a book I want to tell you guys about. It's called Atomic Habits, I believe that's the name of it. And you got to start small to like, I'll give you guys and this is totally random, but I think about this because if we look at the effect, like sometimes we feel like certain things cost us too much, and so we don't want to do it or whatever the case may be. But we got to think of what is it going to cost me if I don't do it. So even when it comes to our health and stuff like that, like we say eating healthy costs too much. It's expensive, and it is. You know what I'm saying? But guess what? If you have poor health, that's going to be way more expensive than eating healthy. So you got to pick your
Right.
struggle. But what I thought about was that for some reason I couldn't get in the habit of flossing my teeth. Like I know that's so random, but like y'all, I'm so. But let me tell y'all what made me change that. So like for whatever reason I would go to the dentist and I did not floss my teeth every day. And I know that's probably like disgusting to some people, but like, and I don't think like I think my aunt, who one of my aunts that raised me, like she was an avid flosser, but I don't think we ever had conversations, and she didn't really stress the importance of me flossing my teeth. And of course, you go to the dentist, but so that wasn't a habit that I incorporated into my life. But let me tell y'all what made me change that because I had because I wasn't flossing regularly, I had what they call it's like a gum disease. I forget what it was called.
Gingivitis.
No, it was called something else. But yeah, it was bad, like the gum disease, to the point where when I began to go to the dentist, like, your insurance covers a certain amount, but no, like, y'all, I was paying. It was expensive, like, and I would have to get it done in quadrants where they would have to do this deep
Mm-hmm.
cleaning.
I had
I would
that.
have this special oral rinse and stuff like that. Because of it, it was like plaque buildup and stuff like that, and it was like creating, like, y'all. And I don't think I was realizing it, but I remember times also seeing other people, and if you don't floss daily, like, it creates this hard, like, ceramic white stuff that goes around, like, and so I did that like some years ago, and I improved a little bit. So, but let me tell you, I paid out of pocket for that, and I was like, oh, I ain't trying to do this no more. So I said, okay, well, I'm gonna work on that. So I think, as opposed to hardly maybe flossing once or twice a month, I went to trying to floss once a week, every other week, or something like that. But now, y'all, your girl floss every day because I had to go back to the dentist again, like, and pay all over again and have the same process. And
Yeah.
it's kind of painful too. So not only is it painful, but it's expensive. So I'm like, oh no, we ain't doing that. So now I floss once every day. I don't play no games, and like, that's a habit. So when it comes to it just made me think about that when I went over that particular one, like how we have to, like, create a daily routine or whatnot. But it starts with the small things, and we have to take into perspective, like, what is it gonna cost me if I don't do this? It's gonna cost you your peace of mind, your sanity, and so forth. And so begin to pick up those, or have some sort of routine or structure. Let's see, movement, gentle excellence. We back at exercising, yoga, walking, stretching. Some people got to start out easy. You know what I'm saying? I know for me, when I was overweight, there were certain things I just couldn't do. So I used to be in these workout classes, and I felt so defeated because I couldn't do a push up, I couldn't do a sit up. I'm like, bro, I'm too fat for this. Like, I couldn't do it. I couldn't lift my own body weight up. So it wasn't until, like, I lost weight and I was able to do certain stuff. And so I just and challenge you, because I know we're speaking to an audience of all different, backgrounds and so forth. And so gentle exercises, you know what I'm saying? It don't have to be anything strenuous. Just, start where you're at. Nutrition. Look, I feel
There
convicted
again.
over here after I just said I ate some cookies. I'm trying to think. I had a bagel. I started the morning off healthy with my oats and blueberries. Then we go to church, and then I had a whole bagel and some cookies. Y'all, your girl need help.
I'm thinking about dessert right now.
And
Sorry, y'all.
hydration. Look, a lot of it is we be thinking we hungry, but we're dehydrated. Our body, like, that's a major one. Got it. Now I done mastered drinking water. I don't drink enough as I should. But my struggle with that is because I'm always having to go to the bathroom, and I'm like, in California, it's a little challenging to have public restrooms because of the issue with homelessness. And so, yeah, it's not always, a bathroom isn't always easily accessible. So, yeah, I'm trying to find balance there. But boundaries, learning to say no and protect emotional space is essential for healing. And as I said, and I know I'm beating a dead horse, I struggle with saying no. I didn't know how to say no. I didn't have that voice to say no. But that's important. So you guys got to learn how to set those boundaries. And it's okay, just increase that confidence. Rest and sleep. Now, we should be, what does it say? Is it supposed to be 8 or 10? Eight? It's at least 8 hours of sleep I think we're supposed to get. That's
Six to eight for our age group, I think.
okay. Yeah, rest and sleep. Like, give your body some rest. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? Prioritize quality rest, restores emotional and physical strength. Creative expression. Again, poetry, painting, dancing, any creative outlet can promote healing. Like, y'all be so amazed at, like, how doing certain things just make you happy. Like, and sometimes life get to life in. And so not even just for the people who are, like, impacted by sexual assault, but specifically for those people, but even those who not, like, sometimes we don't even realize, like, how we don't even engage or do some of these things, and it don't always have to be an expensive thing or something that you're paying for. Get on Eventbrite or get on other platforms. Search your social media platforms and see. I see all the time, like, with hashtags and stuff, of free things. You can go out to, like, music festivals and all sorts of things. Like, get out, talk to people. Like, I didn't realize, like, the woman that I am today, and how I'm just like, and yeah, we say some people just introvert. Oh, I don't do people or this, that, and the third. But oftentimes, people who are like that, like, it's something deeper. It's coming from a deeper place. And so I used to be a little bit more quiet and reserved, but I realized that that version of me kind of also lacked confidence. And because I lacked confidence, I didn't know who I was and whose I was. And so I wasn't showing up in spaces with a level of boldness and confidence. And so I wasn't one to just be outgoing and just start conversations with people and stuff like that. But I encourage people to get out more, get out in places, learn how to just start conversations with random people. Like, you just don't even understand how that can change your life, how you can build community. Building community is extremely important when you build community because like you then have that support system, but build a
Hmm.
right community. It's important to have the right community and stuff like that. So yeah, anything you want to add to that?
I think you covered it. I think
All
we
right.
good.
Okay, y'all. So that is us. We have wrapped up this sexual assault awareness month. Definitely share, tag other people. I'll be posting some clips throughout the week, and and probably will continue to even beyond April or whatever, every now and then, just to kind of highlight some of the things or the key points and the tips that we gave. For this month, because the objective and the goal is just to bring awareness, to not just let people know that it happens, because we know that, right? We know
Right.
everybody knows somebody that knows somebody, but it's to make people aware of the impact that it has on other people so that we as a society can support them,
Yep.
in different ways. So that's what I have. I thank you, Sis Stephanie, for your sacrifice and spending this Sunday afternoon talking to my audience. We love you guys. Until next time.